Hey, welcome to Texans on Tap. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by Josh Jordan. Follow him on X at JoshJordan975 and read him on sportsmap.com. While you're here, please give us a quick like on the video to show support for your H-Town football team and to show support for Dalton Schultz. That's who we're going to talk about today. And to show support for D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio. Click subscribe on the channel as well to get all our new videos in your feed. Josh, I mentioned Schultz because we're going to talk about him. I mentioned you write for sportsmap.com. You wrote about Dalton Schultz and Kaimi Fairbairn's new deals. I encourage everyone to go check that out. Schultz was on with Pat McAfee. And look, shout out to Pat McAfee as well. Never have I seen a punter parlay a kicking career into being one of the top media stars of the day. But he, as the kids say, is having a moment. Do they still say that? Probably not now that I used it. But Schultz was asked by McAfee to kind of compare Houston to Dallas. Here's some excerpts from what he had to say.
When you get to Houston, is it vastly different?
That was one of the first things that kind of stuck out to me is like the focus is just football. You know what I mean? And
like what? You don't have to out anything, but like, what are you?
No, dude, it's just like there's people literally going on tours while you're lifting in the weight room. And they've got like a one-way mirror for people to like look at. Like it's a zoo, dude. Like, there's people tapping on the glass, like trying to get people's attention as they're doing. It's different, and I mean that's the brand that they've built. That's what Jerry Jones likes. That's the way that they run things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you don't realize like how many eyeballs and how much that can maybe distract from stuff just in the locker room, being in the facility until you go somewhere else. This is, also a really well-run organization in Houston. And I think that was one of the things that kind of scared me about like leaving Dallas the most is like, I wasn't sure what another organization would kind of feel like. And dude, I got here and it was like, this place is a well-oiled machine.
Now that seems all pretty harmless, but former Cowboy Keyshawn Johnson, current Cowboy apologist Skip Bayless had some thoughts. Here's what they had to say.
Well, it's easy to pile on to the Cowboys right now.
It is.
They're an easy target.
Well, they should be the easiest target.
And they put themselves in this position.
That is true. And by the way, I do think Houston is a well-oiled machine.
If you worried about a two-way mirror that the Joneses put in the facility, not to show people that visit the facility, look at this. They put it in so they can watch you work out. Every team parade sponsors around. This is his opportunity to get back at Dallas. Yeah. I was in the playoffs. We won a game. Y'all was in the playoffs. Y'all lost to the number 7 seed. Yeah. So take that. That's the way I see it.
Okay. I hear everything you just said, and I will co-sign on everything you just said because Dalton Schultz to me is quote unquote dead to me. He's gone and forgotten.
Josh, like I said, I think what Dalton had to say was seemingly harmless. What were your thoughts on Skip's reactions to Dalton's comments?
To me, Skip's was pretty predictable. As a Cowboys fan, he felt like shots were being fired at his team and, immediately kind of had an issue with what Schultz said. Basically, him and Key made it seem like it was just sour grapes from Dalton Schultz. But I don't think that was the case at all. I feel like this is being really taken out of context. And, the first question he asked Key was, does he have a point about Schultz's comments? And he was like, no, not to me. Isn't this the guy they moved on from? What do you mean? Of course he has a point. He was just pointing out how this is how the Texans do things. This is how the Cowboys do things. And he was asked a specific question. Could you give me an example? And he just gave him the example of, there's tours going on and there's a two-way mirror where people are watching you work out and tapping on the glass. So for him to talk about it being similar to a zoo, that's what people do at zoos. They watch things and they look through glass and sometimes they tap on it. I think it was just purely that simple. So, of course, he has a point. He was just pointing that out. And I think the other thing about the Texans is I bet he felt like more with Houston, it's more of a us against them mentality, because you don't have all these people coming through and touring your facilities all the time. You feel like we're working on something as a team, we're building something, and it's us against the world, where the Cowboys just feel a lot more public. And I just wanted to point out too, there's two definitions of zoo. Okay. So the first definition of zoo is a situation characterized by confusion and disorder, which if you think about Jerry Jones, people talk about him being a carnival barker. So all these things kind of go together. But that's not what I think Schultz was talking about. He was talking about an establishment which maintains a collection of wild animals for study, conservation, or display to the public. That's what he meant by zoo, and that's exactly what he described. But it's so easy these days to take a word somebody says and put it in a headline and twist it for whatever reason you want to do it. And of course, we're the media too. We all use headlines to our own benefit. But I just wanted to come out and say this. I feel like Dalton Schultz kind of got screwed over here.
Yeah, zoo in the context that he used it could almost be interchangeable with terrarium, because
Right.
there's people behind the glass observing. And if you listen to his full comments, he said Houston is also a well-run organization. So immediately he's giving credit to the Cowboys. In fact, he admitted it was one of the things that scared him about leaving the Cowboys was he didn't know what to expect from another team and how it would be run. The Cowboys are a good team. They've had a good team. So he probably and understandably had misgivings to come to Houston where, and look, he can't say it, but the team had been comically bad.
Yes.
And if look, if you don't get all those high draft picks from being good. Watson forced his way out. And then since then, it was bad seasons and one and done. He had coaches. So if anything, he was probably surprised, as for all of us, by the culture that existed in Houston and how quickly the team found success under DeMeco Ryans and with CJ Stroud at the helm. And if we're all being honest, it was against all odds and likelihood that all that happened. And on Skip and Key's reaction, they start off by admitting that the Cowboys are an easy target and that Schultz is probably feeling himself after getting cut. And now he's grabbing his bag and he's insinuating that he's bitter for the Cowboys going cheaper. That's the NFL. That's how it works. Literally everyone at every position, as long as you're not named Barry Sanders, you get replaced. Every player ages out and is replaced by younger, cheaper talent. That is how the system is built. That is the expectation. Dalton, in that moment, didn't sound bitter. He sounded relieved that he landed in such a good spot. But of course, that can't be the narrative for Skip, because every compliment to another team has to be a backhanded slight against the Cowboys.
Well, but also Skip has those feelings about Jerry Jones. He's not happy with the way he runs things. He feels like they are a little too Hollywood and they're not as focused on football. And he hates Mike McCarthy as their coach, and he doesn't like the culture of him. And remember, McCarthy was the guy with rumors when he was with the Packers. He was skipping walkthroughs while he was getting massages up in his office. So, that's what he thinks of McCarthy, and that's what he thinks of Jerry Jones. So that's just a lot of him seeking this out in Dalton Schultz's comments. And Keyshawn really bothered me too, because he's not as big a rah-rah Cowboy guy like Skip is. Right. And for him to say like, oh, if you're worried about a two-way mirror, like, what kind of player can you be? What's, that kind of thing. And it's like, he didn't say he was worried about it. He just said it was different. That's all. He's only been in two places. He just pointed, it's like this over here. It's like that over there. And I mean, Schultz is just happy. He's complimenting the team that just gave him a contract extension that he's excited about. So it's just, that's what we do right now. We take words out of context and try and make a big story about it where there's really no there.
Well, to your point about the connotation in which Skip is reading it, there's a saying that every accusation is an admission. And that's kind of what this feels like. This feels like it's not a slight by Dalton, but it feels like Skip wants it to be.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's silly. It's an unfortunate state of the media where, and we're trying to bring some perspective to it. Look, I mean, hats off to them. They're media members who have, are at the top. So, but that being said, that does not make them, without fault here. And I think these contacts, I think it's slightly irresponsible to try to create some sort of narrative or try to create some sort of ill will where this was not. I mean, Dalton was completely respectful of both teams. And again, I think looking back on it and kind of looking at what even Skip's preamble, he goes, oh, well, it's easy to take shots at the Cowboys because they've made it easy. He wasn't taking shots. That's not what this was. You're setting this up to be something that it wasn't. It wasn't that. It just was Dalton giving a very specific example when asked and pressed by Pat. Like, give me an example of what happens here, how public the team is compared to somewhere else. And he said, there's tours. You're more of a spectacle in Dallas where they're bringing people in and, giving, transparency to the public as an attraction. And he said, Houston, it's like college. You're in the gym, you're working out, your lift is your lift. You're in a workout with purpose of getting stronger and strength training. Whereas in Dallas, it's
throwing peanuts at you.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of dual purpose. Someone's behind the glass, trying to get the Tigers' attention. So anywho, I think we'll probably end it there, but we both had some pretty strong reactions to this. That's why we want to talk about it. So we will be back on the channel later. Please make sure you hit follow on the channel so that as we have more real Texans content, and not just this emotional reaction stuff, but as we have real Texans content news, we got free agency, obviously, that we're in the midst of, and the draft. Oh, baby, the draft. Can't wait for that stuff to come down too. So make sure you're following us here. It's going to be an awesome, awesome ride as we ramp up towards next season. So thanks for joining us. As always, go Texans.